clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by David Barrett, chaplain over in the Sheriff's Office. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let us pray. Gracious Lord, we are thankful for the reminder this season of year brings. You are among us. You came not with a divine perfection that would only make us feel small, but in humanity's most vulnerable form, so we could believe that we can grow beyond what we are now. You came not with the arrogance of rich magnificence, but in the poverty of the stable, so we could believe that we can rise above our circumstances. You came not with mandates that would crush our creativity, but with grace that frees us to become more than we can even dare to dream. You came not with condemnation for our struggles and failings, but with love that lifts us up out of those things. You came, and because you did, we can become. You remain among us, and because you do, we can overcome. So this season, help us to remember, and in our remembering, help us to act for the same reason you did, peace on earth and goodwill towards men. Amen.
Is it time? Every year, right before Christmas, it has been a tradition here in Tarrant County to be caroled by the O.D. Wyatt singing chaparral choir. This is somewhere around the 20th year that we have done this. It is the gift of Precinct 1 to the people of Tarrant County. For me, the Christmas season does not begin until these kids sing. It is so easy to take for granted the things that have happened to us and for us during the course of the year. But when you hear the voices of these kids singing praises, it becomes more than just an ordinary thing, more than just a tradition. It's something to which we look forward. It is something that jump-starts something in our spirits to make us want to give thanks. It is my pleasure to present the O.D. Wyatt Singing Chaparral Choir, directed by Mr. Brian Stratton. Ms. Kelly retired again. Again?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you?
Good morning.
What? Smile, folks. Come on. Come on. Smile. As Miss Kelly says, smile with the teeth you have or whatever teeth you brought. Smile. Okay? Thank you so much for this invitation. I can tell you that this is the highlight of our year, as we often hear. I got the call from Mo about 2 months ago. The commission, I said, we already said, you get first choice, you get first preference, choose your day. Commissioner Brooks, to the rest of the commissioners and the committee, thank you so much for inviting us here today. My name is Brian Stratton. I'm the predecessor. Trying to stay young, but the gray is catching up with me, too. The O.D. Wyatt Singing Chaparrals are here today to bring a little Christmas joy to you. We have limited time, unfortunately, but we're going to make it as best as we can for you, because this is a special time for us all. We'd like to continue singing today one of our favorite hymns and favorite carols, Joy to the World. Children don't smile, baby. They're so stuck in the machine, they can't smile.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. Joy to the earth, the Savior reigns. Let man the souls imploit. What heals and flush, what heals and plays. Repeat the sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. Hark, cries of bells, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, that is the song which joyfully all caroling. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. All raising the song, fire and don't tell it so. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Ding, merry, merry, merry Christmas. Ding, merry, merry, merry Christmas. All on this day, all the gushing, their joyful tone to every home. All of the bells, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, that is the song which joyful ring, all caroling. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they call, raising the song, fire and don't tell it it's so. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. All on this day, all without it, their joyful tone to every home. All are the bells, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, that is the song which joyful ring, all caroling. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, raising the song, fire and don't tell it so. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, merry, merry
next tune, I kind of threw in because I said, try a new one. Now, the thing about doing new tunes, you all understand, when it's something new, everybody loses hair. Nerves start to kick in, folks, oh God, we can't change. Yeah, well, I'm going to let them sweat this time. I said, some of them are going to be like just smiling at you and they're looking at a paper down in front of them. I said, well, just see what you can do. While shepherds watch their flocks by night. One a very familiar and old English carol. Here we go. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Y'all, you ready?
While shepherds watch their flocks by night, all seated on the ground, the angels of the Lord came down, and glory shone around. Fear not, said he, for mighty dread has seized their troubled mind. Glad tidings of the joy I bring to you and all mankind. To you in David's town this day is born of David's line the Savior who is Christ the Lord, and this shall be the sign. Every day you there shall find to human view display, all neatly wrapped in swaddling bands, and in a manger laid. All glory be to God on high, and to the earth be peace. Goodwill henceforth from heaven to men, begin and never cease.
Think they passed their tests. They think they do. It is, did I remember all of them? Which one did I forget? Oh, well, the Virgin Mary. That's the one we wanted to do. The Virgin Mary. It's a calypso song. Y'all can smile. It's all right. This is a joy for us. This is such a, you all give them a hand. Features our bass section. They've got a good one this year. Here we go. 1, 2, 1.
The Virgin Mary had a baby boy. The Virgin Mary had a baby boy. The Virgin Mary had a baby boy. And they say that his name was Jesus. He comes from the glory. He comes from the glorious kingdom. He comes from the glory. He comes from the glorious kingdom. Oh, yes, believer. Oh, yes, believers. He comes from the glory. He comes from the glorious kingdom. The angels sang when the baby born. The angels sang when the baby born. The angels sang when the baby born. And they proclaimed the Savior Jesus. He comes from the glory. He comes from the glorious kingdom. He comes from the glory. He comes from the glorious kingdom. Oh, yes, believer. Oh, yes, believers. He comes from the glory. He comes from the glorious kingdom. The wise men saw where the baby born. The wise men saw where the baby born. The wise men saw where the baby born. And they say that his name was Jesus. He comes comes from the glorious kingdom. Oh, yes, believer, oh, yes, yes. He comes from the glory. He comes from the glorious kingdom.
Before we conclude, I'd like to thank you so much again for inviting us here. Commissioner Brooks, you are so dear to us, and I can't begin to tell you without being very emotional how much your support means to this school and to Wyatt and to all the years and to all the generations that have come through this court and sung for this audience and for those who serve us. I can tell you that there are students from 15, 20 years ago said, oh, I remember when we went down to the courthouse and they had cookies and everything. So, but it's such an important time in their lives. And a lot of times I get calls from people, when are y'all going down to the courthouse? They only have a small amount of room. You can't join us. You're 40 years old. Go out and get a job. But it means so much for us to come here. And in a time when there's a lot of pressure on schools and on the performances and the arts that kind of get shoveled to the side, every Christmas folks remember that if you just cut off this beautiful experience, you'd have a pretty lousy event. So I think it's important that we remember, not only during Christmas, but throughout the year, the beauty of what we share in music. We'd like to finish with a song that has been so important. That better be Jesus calling. or your congressman, whomever, or your congressman. That's all right. We're used to it. We'd like to finish with the song that many of you know and one that's very important to us. The angels sang, hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men, women, and children. Jesus Christ is born.
Peace on earth.
Everybody had the angels sang hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. Peace on earth was near. Jesus Christ is born. Angels sang hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. Peace on earth. Peace on earth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. If we can spread just a little joy, this means, as I said, so much to us, and I know how much it means to you. In this world, if you can take just this moment and take this everywhere that you go, in the midst of your dealings, in the midst of your progress through this city, through this community, just take that one little thought, peace on earth. If we can do just a little bit for each other, every day, no matter where we are from, no matter what our leanings, political, religious, or otherwise. If we can take just that one moment, we're dedicated at the Fort Worth ISD to trying to do our best to spreading this message. And I'm going to get slightly political. You can't do it through math. You can't do it through science. You can't even do it through English or any of those other great subjects that the government wants us to make sure we know. But I guarantee you, on your dying day or on the day of something special, you remember that song the angels sang. And we hope that travels with you from now into eternity. And when it's all done, and when we're all somewhere and someplace else in this cosmos, may the sounds that you hear today resonate throughout the universe. Thank you to the Commissioner's Court and to all the commissioners. God bless you all. God bless every one of us. God bless our country. Thank you. We thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Thank you to these wonderfully talented young people.
We're out of here.
You have warmed our hearts. Thank you.
Angels, here we go, Ponies. 1, 2, and angels we have heard.
Peace on earth, goodwill towards men.
Your Honor, members of the court, no matter what we do today, we'll never top that.
No, we won't.
Court members, we have several announcements as it relates to the agenda this morning. The first is under the Administrator section, item 8A7. This concerns the regulation, sale, and use of fireworks. We will be considering that after closed session today. Also under the Administrator section, item A18, which is the out-of-state travel requests. We have a revised communication in your court packet for you this morning. Also, members of the court, under purchasing, item 8K 6 and 8. We're going to hold both of those at this time. Under transportation services, which is M1, where this is a real estate sales agreement. This too will be considered after close today. And also we understand there are some bonds today. So when we get to that particular section. And then finally, we would like to take this opportunity to congratulate a member of the court that has recently hit a very a high milestone, or an old milestone, whatever you want to call it. I know we had a birthday this week, and AARP has been sending cards to him for the last 10 years. And so we just have a few pictures that on the board to.
Oh my goodness.
And we'll ask that he hold his comments until after all the pictures.
Just remember, Duff. Yeah, I'm still the second youngest member of the court.
getting older every day.
I'll sport my tie that my staff got. That's the Tarrant County Courthouse, and it works just perfectly.
Excellent. Happy birthday.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate that.
These pictures become a part of the public record, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think so.
Yes.
Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of December the 4th.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under proclamations and resolutions, I believe we have the recognition of our 2012 Leadership Development Program, and while Larry's coming up to do that, I will congratulate our Aggies in the audience. Obviously made a little history over the weekend with first freshman to ever receive the Heisman and had a great record. You know, Jack, I think it probably took y'all 20 years to get that kind of a record after going into the SEC.
We helped him look good, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. there were a lot of us that helped him look good over this year. Congratulations to all the Aggies in the group, Commissioner Fickus and others. Larry, take it away.
All right, we're here today to recognize the 2012 Leadership Development class. They have worked all year. They're taking one class every month. They do a project outside their own department where they have to learn in detail about another department, write a report, do a presentation on that. And so we're here today to award their certificates. So I'll call them up. They will come up one by one. Excuse me just a moment. Let me grab the certificates. Yeah, let's pull it up here a little closer. Peggy Campos, Juvenile Services. Circle right in. Nikki Clark, County Clerk. Karen Evans, Tax. Karen's not with us today. Jeremy Gallops, Public Health. No Jeremy. Heather Helton, Domestic Relations. Mona Hill, Juvenile Services. Shannon Kelly, Juvenile Services. Kara Mordecai, Tax Office. Abram Alver, Public Health. Marianne Pierce, Public Health. John Stubblefield, Precinct 3. Charlotte Tackett, Tax. Christina Tennyson, Constable, Precinct 3. And Lisa Willis, County Clerk. And that's the 2012 group. Congratulations.
Way to go, John. Congratulations to all of y'all. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda with the changes that were outlined in the agenda announcements.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members, there will be several of our office making presentations this morning. The first concerns legislative issues. Mr. Mendez is here to address the court.
Good morning.
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 Morning. Good morning.
As you will recall, back in July, the court adopted the core package of policy statements for the upcoming legislative session, which we've been having meetings with the delegation to let them know how the court feels on certain broad issues. What we have for your consideration today is those issues that have been brought forward by county departments, and they are seeking your support on some of these. I will briefly summarize these issues, and the action we're requesting is merely support or approval so that we can lend our support as these issues are brought forward by those departments and their associated associations statewide. The first of these issues is an increase in tax assessor commission for auto registration transactions. This fee has been at $1.90 since 1991, whereas the cost per transaction for our tax assessor is approximately $5.67 for each of these. The Tax Assessor Association is going to take the lead on this issue, and they're moving forward with increasing that fee. The Tarrant County Tax Assessor is seeking support of the Commissioner's Court on this issue.
What is the current fee?
The current fee is $1.90.
Do we want to do these individually, members of the court, or do you want to?
I would suggest that you do them individually.
Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second issue is brought to us from the probate courts. This is the creation of a public probate administrator in non-guardianship probate cases where there is no one responsible otherwise. The issue is that it's hard in these cases to get an attorney to serve as the administrator where there is a modest estate and no family member is willing or able to come forward and act as that administrator. In some states, there are offices of a public fiduciary or a public administrator. Missouri, for example, has an elected position that does this particular job. What this legislation would do, it is permissive. It will create a public probate administrator, which would be appointed by the statutory probate judge with the approval of Commissioner's Court, who also sets the salary. It will be funded by a new $10 fee on probate actions, as well as some commissions that are currently being paid into the county treasury. So it should be largely self-supporting. The probate judiciary statewide is behind this movement and is going to get that legislation filed. We haven't seen the specific language yet, though.
How many employees would this require? You need that administrator, but what other employees?
I believe there's also an investigative position that's associated with this and perhaps some administrative staff. I don't know if there's anybody here from the probate courts.
Yeah, it would be just one employee additionally.
One employee in addition to the administrator or just in?
And you're going to get how much more money?
We have not estimated a potential revenue on that, no, sir.
But if we were to get the $10 per case, about how much would that equate to?
I don't know.
How many?
There's a 5% of money brought in and 5% of money brought out that regular administrators get that also.
So we're still in the hole.
Maybe. I don't know what the 5% represents. And this is something probate judges or courts are looking at, and you're over statewide. That's
Yes, sir. They are crafting the legislation. We haven't seen any specific language, and they will probably get somebody out of Austin to file it.
Could we maybe get a little bit more detail on the pricing on that, on what the cost would be on that? Debbie, could you kind of work on, before we go ahead and move forward on that one?
The next issue is also brought forward by the probate courts, and that is payment of attorney's fees and guardianship proceedings. The instance where this happens is that the court must order payment of fees for compensation of attorneys, mental health professionals, and interpreters in guardianship cases, and when the estate is not large enough to cover those costs, the county where the case is being heard is responsible. And in another instance where the creation of the guardianship itself comes into question, sometimes the estate's not adequate to cover those costs. The county must then supplement these expenses. What the proposed legislation would do is two things. One, it would be to allow the court to allocate the attorney's fees amongst all the different parties in question, and if there is dispute over or if there's any litigation over the guardianship itself, the county would not have to supplement the cost of that dispute. The legislation has, I think it's been tried 3 times. Last session, Senator Harris was the one who filed it, got it through both houses, and it simply just ran out of time as it was moving through the final days of the session. So it's going to be filed again, and the probate courts are just seeking the support of the court.
So in effect, this protects us from
Excessive costs, yes, sir.
excessive costs.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Next issue came to us from the Justice of the Peace Courts, and it has to do with the procedures when an order of release in the case of a hearing on the status of a towed vehicle is ignored by the holding company. Sometimes it has happened on occasion that the towing storage company will refuse to honor this order of release, and apparently there is no clear established procedure on when the court can initiate a contempt of court finding in this particular situation. I believe that the Justice of the Peace and Constables Association in Texas is considering adding this to their particular platform, and Judge Swearingen brought this to us and is just seeking the support of the court on that.
Have all the JPs signed on this?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Let's go back to all the JPs and get them to sign. I mean, it may be just a deal, but I don't want to do it just based upon, I mean, just like we require unanimous, I would think we'd want the JPs to be in sync on this.
When the court releases that vehicle, and you're saying that they go then to the people who are holding the car, which I assume the company that's holding the car has some authorization from the county or somebody to have taken possession of that car.
My understanding is the car gets towed, it's held in an impounding pond, it's usually on that property. There is a hearing that is held over the disposition of that vehicle in front of the JP. He issues an order of release,
Right.
and the company is simply ignoring that order.
Do they ignore it because the people aren't paying?
I have not been given the details
The
of the
people who
situation.
have the release in hand.
If they pay, they don't have to go
Don't
to
have
court.
the money to get the car out. Are they supposed to give up their fee?
Those details I do not know, no, sir.
Can you come back and let us know?
I will do that.
Yeah, I guess that's, so in addition to wanting the other JPs to agree with this, the second thing would be, give us a couple of examples, because if I guess if your car gets towed and you get in there and pay it, you don't have any problem, you don't have to go. So it sounds like these people are going to the JP and arguing.
The point is that the holder needs to observe the order of the court. The court, having considered both sides, makes a ruling. And that ruling has the effect of law, I would think, Mr. Wright. And they need to follow the
Who's the other side?
person holding the vehicle and the owner of the vehicle.
Maybe not. Maybe it's a business owner and somebody came to the business and they have a dispute, but the car got towed. It sounds to me like we're leaving the towing guy hanging out to dry.
We need some more facts on this one.
Yeah, let's get some more.
Which may not be a bad idea, but still.
My point is that the
They're
court
in
would
business,
have
too.
considered all of those matters before it issued its order.
We would hope.
We'll get some more information on that. The next one has to do, it came to us from the Public Health Department, and this has to do with fees for reinspection of food establishments, those establishments that exist in the unincorporated area or for which we conducted inspections inside certain cities that we have contracts with. If they fail the initial inspection and require a follow-up inspection, we have no authority to charge for that second inspection. And what is being sought is merely a fee to cover our man-hour costs and whatever expenses are related to that. Harris County also has this same issue, and they are actually crafting the legislation now. We're just seeking the court's approval to join in their efforts.
How much are we charging for?
Dave Jefferson's here.
Currently, we have no charge for follow-up inspections because we can't collect it. We would probably.
What's our initial charge?
The initial permit fee is based on the square footage of the building and runs anything from up to about $300 is the maximum we can charge for the early permit.
About $300.
This fee would be just for the people who need, shall we say, additional help getting back into compliance.
Do you charge, you go in and do an you might want to come up here.
Morning, Commissioner. Judge?
The inspections that y'all do,
Yes.
are these random inspections, aren't they?
Yes, yes, sir.
Do you walk in and say, you owe me $300 to do this inspection?
No, the way it's set up is the law allows us to collect an annual permit fee.
Okay.
And in that annual permit fee, we have, normally, we've calculated approximately 2 inspections. That's where we try to set the fee. State law limits us on how much though. So anyway, and if an establishment is in good working condition, we don't need to do any more inspections than that. If, however, they have repeated violations or serious violations, we need to go back and ensure that they have made the corrections. And the problem is we have no way of adjusting a fee, shall we say, for those bad actors. And so it either has to be spread across everybody or nobody. And at the moment, because the state law limits us to an absolute amount, we can't spread it to anybody. And so if somebody needs to be visited 3 or 4 times, we have no way of recovering those costs.
David, who sets those fees?
The state law has the limit on the top end limit on it, but underneath that limit, we establish the fees.
The Commissioner's Court sets those fees.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so if, let's say you send an inspector out to an establishment, and let's say there are 10 checkpoints, and the establishment passes 9. There's only 1, okay? You would come back and do a follow-up inspection, and if they pass, then you would charge them an additional $300.
Or whatever we said as a fee is a
Whatever is the fee,
Yeah,
right?
If we were allowed to have a fee, we would first of all have to set, in our procedures, we would set a criteria for what would be valid as far as us requiring ourselves to go back and get another inspection, not just because they had a failed item, but it would have to be something such as a number of critical inspection points, what have you. It wouldn't just be random. We would set a policy to say, under these circumstances, a follow-up inspection will be required.
Has to be conditional?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because a lot of times you go into an establishment, there's a problem. We work with them right then and there to make the correction. We walk out the door, there's no longer a violation there. But if it's something that's going to take them some time, say they've got to call in plumbers and things like this to make sure that the plumbing is fixed, then we have to go back out to make sure that they have made that correction. It's a serious violation. They didn't have hot water in the building, something like this. Then we have to go back out there, and at that point, they would be assessed that fee, whatever fee it is that the court had established.
But didn't you say that your annual fee is based upon 2 inspections?
On an average number of inspections, yes, Commissioner. And so if we have to go out there a third or a fourth or a fifth time.
So we're talking about after the second inspection.
Yeah, well, yes, well, if we have to do additional inspections, because if we go in there at the beginning of the year and do an inspection, and there's a problem, and we have to come back 10 days later, we still have a second regular inspection out there that's going to happen in September, October, something like that. They're still going to get their 2 regular inspections.
I see.
This is for that additional inspection because they had failed to meet the requirements. And so it would only be assessed to those people who are having problems meeting the requirements. The people who are doing a good job get their regular inspections, no additional costs, no fees. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid shifting those resources that we need onto the good actors. We want to keep it to the people who are causing us to spend more time and money in their establishments.
And how often do these incidents occur on an annual basis? What percentage?
There would be potentially hundreds of these incidents a year. It varies quite a bit based on just, what happens, quite frankly, sometimes when times are a little difficult economically, people try cutting corners, and that's when we have to go in there that much more sometimes. But I can't tell you that there's going to be, in a certain month, there's going to be this many re-inspections, no. But through the year, there are hundreds of re-inspections needed.
If they can't pay the fee, okay, got a plumbing problem, get a plumber in, they've just written a check for $1,100 to get a new hot water heater, will you have the authority to not, after they fix the problem, will you have the authority to keep them shut down until they pay you?
That would be something we would come to the court in establishing this fee. That would be part of what we would have to work out in our procedures. But before we can do anything with the court as far as this situation, we have to have the ability from the state to be able to have another fee. But before we could put that fee in place, no, we would come to the Commissioner's Court and establish those criteria and procedures with your blessing. So
Your $300 kind of sounds high, but.
well, that's our annual permit that's out there, and that's for the larger establishments. Smaller establishments have a lesser fee. But
So
still,
the 300, you said it was based upon square foot, maximum's $300.
Yeah.
That covers 2 inspections a year.
at the moment, yes,
So
sir.
now we're looking at 150 each inspection. And we're going to set what the re-inspection would be.
I agree, but if you have a problem that you have to come back on,
Yeah.
typically, I would think it's like one issue. I had to fix I know it could be 10, it could be 20, and those people don't need to reopen. But if it's like one issue, you're going to go back, check them, basically you're going to walk in and did they fix it? Does the water work right? Has it got the right temperature in the dishwasher or whatever? Boom, you're gone. Is it an automatic certain amount, or is it a sliding fee? Or
I assume that's what we're going to set, and there is some, I understand what you're saying, but there's some cost associated with that. And, if it was $50 or if it was $75, if that's going to keep that restaurant from opening, then we probably got a bigger problem than.
I know.
And that is my concern, because based on my personal experience, most of these establishments can be found in a low-income area. Okay, most of these businesses, they already pay property tax, they already pay liquor tax, they already pay sales tax. And now we are basically nickel and diming them, giving them, that is where my concern is, how much revenue are we expecting for the county, and then in turn we kill off small businesses.
I'm not sure I see this as nickel and diming them. They have to go back out. There's a cost associated with having to go back out.
But we have to identify how significant is these return trips. We have to identify right now, there is not a percentage delivered to us. What you were saying, it can be in the hundreds. It's a very broad approximation.
But if they think it's serious enough for them to go back out, in effect what they're saying is to the public who is using that establishment, we feel like that in order to protect their health, we got to make sure they're fixing that problem. So I guess the other side of that coin is who's going to pay for the food poisoning or who's going to pay for the other problems that the public's going to have if they don't fix that problem right? And is it worth a $50 or a $40 or we can figure out what the actual cost of somebody taking the time, getting in the car, driving out there, doing the inspection, getting back in the car and coming home. But there's some charge associated with that.
If I may say one thing, I would disagree with you a little bit, Commissioner, on saying that they were mostly in low-income areas in this. That's not what we have our situation. That's not necessarily true. Most of our food service establishments are going to be in middle to high-end areas, and it's not necessarily the small establishments that's the problem. The larger the establishment is, the more time we're spending in there, quite frankly, the more likely there's going to be a problem. You have more chances for there to be a problem. So this isn't necessarily, I don't think you're going to find aimed at necessarily one part of the community or one part of our inspection community, if you want to look at it that way.
Court members
cover everything.
Court members, the one thing we need to realize about this, what this does, it's a permissive piece of legislation. Yeah. And unless we get this legislation, we won't be able to even have these discussions anymore. The permissiveness is that you set the fees, you determine if there's a sliding scale, and then public health will enforce that. If you choose not to have a fee, well, then that's fine. But the deal is that you can't even consider that unless you have this permissive legislation.
David, are y'all able to literally inspect every restaurant in your area twice a year?
Generally speaking, yes. I put a caveat in there because there are some establishments that are, shall we say, a beer bar that has very minor snacks and things that we don't necessarily do those twice a year. But most full-service establishments, yes, sir, we do twice a year. And the problem is the more follow-ups we have take away from those regular inspections just because of a pure time and resource basis. And so there's got to be a give and a take there. And at the moment, we're kind of hamstrung because, as the court has said before, they want this to be a self-supporting program. And if we have a section of the program that can't pay for itself, then it causes difficulties on the other end of that balance.
Okay. I understand where the judge is coming from.
Yeah.
And from his perspective, I do agree with him, okay? But since this is a permissive proposal, my point of view is I don't want for us to set any sort of policy that may intrude upon small businesses that are already struggling, okay? But like GK said, that process can be done afterwards. So
on that basis, I will support it as well, and I will move approval with the caveat that I'm going to be looking real carefully about how we write these rules so that we cover our costs, but we don't penalize the business to the extent that they can't function.
We'll keep a close eye on the legislation as it evolves that Harris County is filing in order to guarantee that remains part of it.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The final issue exists is the mitigation of public nuisances that pose a threat to health and safety. Currently, under the nuisance statutes, when a condition exists that renders it impossible for a responsible party to abate the nuisance, there is the opportunity for the county to step in and fix the problem and then put a lien on that property and work out some sort of repayments provision. This exists, for example, in the illegal dumping, if that is the nuisance. What does not exist is in the instance of a surface sewage system failing and affecting the property and perhaps adjacent properties. It's just not part of the list of instances where we can go in and affect a fix. The issue has been presented to the County Affairs Committee during the interim, and it was well received. Apparently, there are other counties that are experiencing these problems. This might be an issue where we may need to take some initiative on this, and if we can get the language just right and seek to get this passed. With
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the court, on item number 2, we're requesting that the court approve an interlocal agreement between Tarrant County and the North Central Texas Council of Governments to update the county's hazardous mitigation action plan.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the court consider an exception to the county's travel policy. It's a within-region travel for JP Precinct 3. This travel actually occurred November 15th, 2012. Judge Casey attended a judicial training program in Rockwall, and he spent the night, and he's asking for reimbursement.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. I'm assuming that this was an over 2-day type of an event?
Yes.
3 day, actually.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Rockwall's become a very popular place to have events, evidently.
Members of the court, on item 4, 5, and 6, Ms. McMillan is going to make that presentation.
We are reminding these folks that they're supposed to do this ahead of time as opposed to subsequent.
Doesn't seem to be working.
Judge, Commissioners, we're asking today for you to consider an amendment to the 2007 tax abatement with FMR Limited Partnership, which is doing business as Fidelity Investments, to extend the completion deadline for the required improvements. In June of 2007, the Commissioners Court approved a second facility on the Fidelity campus that provided expansion to their financial services business. This was a 600,000 square foot building at a minimum cost of $80 million, and they were to install $20 million of business personal property to the site. The construction of the building in excess of the $80 million was completed by March 31st, 2010, as was set forth in the agreement. However, with the financial crisis and the downturn in the economy, they were delayed in populating the facility, and as such, they delayed the acquisition and the installation of the personal property to the building. We've been working with Fidelity the past year to try to find out how we can come into compliance with this agreement so that we can move forward with the tax abatement. And it's been determined now that they have installed and acquired over $20 million in the personal property by December 31st of 2011. So today we're asking to amend the agreement to set December 31st, 2011 as the amended completion deadline. The beginning date of the abatement still will remain the same. It was January 1 of 2011. They did not get tax abatement for year 1 because the employment levels were not met. But with this amendment, they will then receive tax abatement for the second year of the abatement for 2012. So we're asking you today to approve amendment number 1 to the tax abatement and approve the resolution certifying the agreement to participate in the amendment and authorizing the county judge to execute the amendment.
And when was the original deadline?
The original deadline was March 31st, 2010. But the building sat there. The building was done, but they were unable to populate the building because
It was supposed to have been an $80 million building, and they spent about
$150 million.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The second 2 items, you may recall a few weeks back, we brought forth a briefing on several Fort Worth TIF items that we were trying to kind of finalize now at the end of the year. And these were 2 participations by the hospital district that sat out there in limbo while we had the law change where Tarrant County Commissioners Court would actually approve hospital district participation in TIFs. when staff looked at the various TIFs that the hospital district was not participating in, these two were the only ones that we were recommending. TIF 12 is the Eastbury Renaissance TIF, and this is the one that includes the Masonic home. What we brought before you is the participation agreement for the hospital district to participate at a maximum of 80% of their increment up to a cumulative contribution max of $4,472,590. We're asking for Commissioners Court approval of the resolution and participation agreement for TIF 12, the Eastbury Renaissance TIF.
Because this is an inner city TIF and is adding tremendous value to an area that has not had any development in decades, I will move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes.
The next item is the consideration of approval in Fort Worth TIF number 13, which is the Woodhaven TIF. And much the same premise, we were looking for hospital district participation because it is necessary in order to even make the increment work and to help development. Currently, this TIF actually has a negative increment, so it's going to need all of the increment from the different taxing entities to help make this TIF work and revitalize the Woodhaven area. It is important to note, too, that on these increments, the hospital district does not have to go back and pay any increment. It will start from tax year 2012 forward. So today we're asking Commissioners Court to approve a participation agreement for the Fort Worth TIF Zone number 13 Woodhaven TIF at a maximum of 80% for the hospital district to a cap of $2,410,207.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
That's over 20 years?
Yes, sir. Well, the remainder of the TIF term would be the 20 years.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Tidwell?
Good morning. We have two items that we're asking the court to consider this morning. The first is to receive and file the auditor's report for the review of the Tarrant County Clerk Bond Forfeiture Section. The clerk has her response attached. We have agreement, and we'll be moving forward with making these suggested improvements as we're able to with the system improvements. Be happy to answer any questions.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion to receive and file
The auditor's
report, 1 and 2, or just 1?
I was going to do them separately, only
Okay,
to make
just one.
comment.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And the second is to receive and file the auditor's report of the tax office process related to agricultural rollback taxes. You have the report and the tax assessor's response. We're still working with the tax assessor, and that we feel that the system's limitations do need to be addressed, and are still working with them to figure out a way that they might do that so that if needed they could make corrections. So the response from the tax assessor is, I would modify that slightly to say that we're still in the process of discussing getting those recommendations implemented down the road so that we can make those adjustments.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And I'm assuming Mr. Phillips is next since he's on his way up here. Good morning.
It is requested that Commissioners Court approve a real property lease with MDT Parkwood Limited for office space at 113 East Harwood Road in Bedford, Texas, to provide temporary office for several county departments during the construction of the new Northeast Subcourthouse.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn?
Good morning.
Morning.
We have two items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for the district clerk's office. As explained in your court communique, the lead civil clerk in the district clerk's office is retiring at the end of December with 88 vacation hours. The district clerk is requesting a waiver of 80 of those vacation hours. The impact to the general fund, we're estimating to be approximately $1,700. It should be noted that the district clerk has a list, or will have a list, of applicants very briefly, and it could be that we'll have some salary savings. We don't know that at this point.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Wetzel.
He's smiling.
Yeah, that locked it in.
He knows.
Good morning. I have one item for the court's consideration. It's approval of the TechShare Court Development Project Addendum for the collaborative development of an adult case management system. This addendum has been thoroughly reviewed by the Information Technology Department, and we see it as a strategic benefit, allowing for collaborative multi-county development, cost sharing, and enhanced quality to build out a court case management system.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Brewer. Good morning.
Good morning, Lou.
We have one item for your approval this morning. This is the Texas Medicaid 1115 Waiver Participation Certification.
Move approval, please.
I'll second. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Your Honor, members of the court, we have 4 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-017. This is for the purchase of tactical air masks for the Sheriff's Department. Recommendation be to award the low bidder on a per unit price basis, awarding to Casco Industries.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. What are these masks for?
New jail, I believe. Is that right?
For the Sheriff's Department, just for their general use in the jails and also when they need to move into smoke-filled units for response, but it's mostly for the jail units for a rapid response. It's a multi-year process that I've been working with Sergeant Alvey with. And so this is over, I think, 3 years is the second year we're buying these.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-020 for the Correction Center chiller and boiler upgrade. Recommendation be to award the low bidder, Sigma Mechanical, the amount of $394,800. If this is approved, we're seeking contract approval as well as acceptance of the payment and performance bond.
Move approval.
Second.
Our motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 3 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-021. This is an annual contract for our Tarrant County government record service pools. Recommendation be to award the primary, secondary, and alternate bidders as shown in court communique. We did receive a bid from Denny's Towing. They did not sign their bid documents, so we would recommend rejection of that bid.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-022. This is a bid for the sale of sporting rifles and shotguns for the Tarrant County Narcotics Union. Our recommendation be to award the high bidder, Alpine Industries, on a per unit price basis.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We did bid this. What it looks like it's averaging about $280 per.
Yes, sir. There were 3 lots that we divided them into. We were all awarded these by court order. This has been They've been collected over the years. We actually contacted 10 vendors, got 3 bids. There was an inspection time for them to look at them as is, where is, like we sell all our surplus property. And the prices are high from what Herschel indicates to me.
From whose indication?
Herschel T-Bay from the Narcotics Union.
Do you know whether or not one of the vendors we sent anything out to was Cabela's?
Don't believe they were contacted, no, sir.
Okay, in the future, we might look
Sure.
to them. Any other discussion or comments? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
Yes, sir. I move for the approval of item N1A, B, C, and D.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve items N1, A, B, C, and D. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Appointments?
What was the situation with transportation?
That's an item that we're going to hold until after.
Until after court?
Yes, sir.
I have some appointments. To the Tarrant County Historical Commission, I have some reappointments. Cindy Wilson Arick, Joe Pirtle, Leila Standifer, Billy Joe Gabriel, and Beth Dyer Kaiser. And a new appointment, you should have a resume at your place, Mr. Andrew Sanders.
Is he replacing Brett Oliver?
He is replacing Brett Oliver, who has moved out of the county.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. I might add to that, if you would not mind, the following folks: Teresa Woodell, Douglas Harmon, Bob Holmes, Richard Seltzer, Linda Ritchie, and J.R. Jack Edmondson. If there's no objections, I'll add those to it. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Takes care of our appointments. We have a couple of bonds today.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Today we just need a motion to approve the official bonds for the tax assessor collector Ron Wright. We have 2 bonds to approve. One is for his state bond and one for his county bond.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I tell you what, he got out of here before we approved his bond, didn't he? Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, and as a point of information, we have both Commissioner Brooks and Commissioner Fickus's bonds, both their official commissioner's bonds and their ex officio road commissioner bonds, which have all been approved by Judge Whitley this morning and do not require full commissioner's court approval. And these bonds will be filed with the county clerk. In addition, we have 1 blanket bond for the staff and reserves of Precinct 6 Constable John Siegel, which also does not require commissioner's court approval, and that will also be filed with the county clerk. And that's all we have today.
I probably have a motion that we receive and file the
Second.
we have a motion and a second to receive and file the bonds on Commissioner Fickus, Commissioner Brooks, and the blanket bond on Constable Siegel. Motion passes unanimously. We have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendums.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 3 items to bring to you this morning. The first one is an update on the seasonal flu. Dr. Curian is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Tarrant.
I'm here this morning to give you a snapshot of the current flu activity in our community. Flu, like I said earlier, is notoriously unpredictable. However, our surveillance data is hinting towards a possibility of a severe flu season this year, a severity in terms of higher number of flu-like illness-related doctor's visits. If you look at our current weekly flu surveillance report, flu is categorized as being widespread, which means at least three out of the 4 quadrants in our county is showing a higher percentage of flu-like illness-related doctor's visits, and there are documented evidence of lab-confirmed flu cases. Now, typically, we see widespread activity sometime around second week of January or later. This year, we've been at the widespread activity level for about slightly over 2 weeks, which means flu has picked up pace almost 8 weeks earlier than usual. Another noteworthy finding this season is that, like I mentioned, higher percentage of flu-like illness-related doctor's visits, and this has exceeded the county baseline of 3.8% this season. Typically, we see a percentage of flu-like illness-related doctor's visit exceed the county baseline sometime during the Christmas week or slightly thereafter, but we've seen this happening during the week of Thanksgiving this season. Unlike what we are seeing in the state or the national level, flu B is the predominant flu strain that we are seeing circulating in the community. But the good news is we still haven't detected any novel or variant strain locally here. We have no reports of outbreaks, and the circulating strains or the flu viruses are a good match to the strains that are included in the current vaccine. So I strongly urge those who are not vaccinated to get vaccinated. Flu season, as you know, goes anywhere from October through May. Ideally, you get vaccinated as soon as the flu vaccine is available, but if for some reason that's not happened, it is still not too late to get vaccinated this season. We have plenty of flu vaccines available, and it's available.
Oops.
Yes, I saw your expression. It's available in all our public health clinics. You can find it in doctor's offices.
2 weeks ago.
I know I did.
Chain
GK was
pharmacies,
supposed to take me.
grocery stores, and they are still available, easy to find, so there are no excuses for those who are still in the process of getting it.
Thank you, doctor. I appreciate that. I just,
GK, have you had your shot?
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
mother.
I
He was
didn't
in
hear
the
what you said,
process.
Commissioner.
What?
I didn't hear what you said.
He's going to take me this afternoon. We're going to get our shots.
Dr. Kurian,
Yes.
do we have any way of determining our comparative rate of vaccination this year as compared to last year and previous years?
Unfortunately, that local data is not available just yet, but we do have an idea of what the vaccination coverage is in our community. We see anywhere from 40 to 41% vaccination coverage. And this we see mainly in those high-risk population, people over 65 or under 5. We still lack good coverage in those 5 to 24 years age group.
JD,
So we have a lot of work to do.
Roy, maybe the rest of y'all might already be worried about that.
I've had my
I've already had mine. Those needles
Andy
are
and I,
not this long.
Andy and I don't have. We're not in that time. We're not in that age range.
Well, as for those people who have aversion to needles, we have something called intradermal shots, which is licensed for 65 years and older. 18 to 64 years. And you can, those needles are 90% shorter. And
How long does it take? Once you get that vaccination, how long is it really supposed to take before it really is beginning to?
it takes about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
But it is still not too late, like
I
I
hear you.
emphasize
You
it.
beating on me enough, doctor. GK and I are going this afternoon, aren't we, GK? Aren't we, GK?
I need to check my calendar, Judge. I'll try. Okay.
Now,
All
we're
right.
supposed to be
You got
trying
yours yet?
to set a good example for the
I'm
public.
going this afternoon. Somebody's going with me this afternoon.
So for all those people who are still debating or in the process of getting a flu vaccine, let's give flu the boot by taking daily preventive measures like covering your cough, practicing good hand hygiene and taking the time to get vaccinated. Like the gentleman said earlier, let's spread some cheer and joy this season and not the flu.
Not the flu.
Thank you for your time.
Well, how many other people in here haven't had their flu shot yet? Raise your hands. Get them up, GK. You ain't had yours. So we could just have a little van here, and we could just all go down to a...
Could we get a public health nurse in here with some vaccine?
Well, all I can say is Dr. Brewer and I have a lot of work to do here. So, and I always wondered who that 59% are who are not vaccinated. I have had the fortune to meet some of them here.
Where's the nearest location?
Should be your office.
Rosedale and Maine.
I
think that's the only way we're going to get GK shot is for him to come up here.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm just running a little late this year, okay?
Just running this year is what he's doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Carey.
Members of the court, we can go to item B. This is a report on a tax abatement on NGC renewables. Ms. McMillan is here to address the court at this time.
Judge Commissioners, several months ago, the Fort Worth Chamber was successful in bringing to our area NGC Renewables to consider location of its new North American headquarters and manufacturing facility and look at putting that here over several areas that they were looking at the time. NGC Renewables is the North American subsidiary of a large Chinese manufacturer, and they manufacture gearboxes for wind turbines. They are looking at a location to construct a 120,000 square foot facility in Alliance Gateway, and this is going to be a two-phase project. The first phase would be the construction of the facility at a cost of about $8.5 million and the installation of about $7.5 million in business personal property, and that would be done by the end of next year. Within the next 5 years, they have projected to add $80 million in new taxable personal property to the location. At the same time, they will employ a minimum of 40 full-time employees at the site, with that employment number rising up to about 150 employees. Those jobs will be skilled.
Over what period of time?
I'm sorry?
Over what period of time?
The 150 employees will be probably by the time within that next 5 years after they ramp up on their personal property. The jobs are skilled technician positions, and the average salaries are $37,000 to $52,000 a year.
Full benefits?
I'm sorry?
Full benefits?
Full benefits, yes, sir. The City of Fort Worth has approved a 10-year tax abatement, providing a maximum of 80% for the 10-year period. And what staff has worked with the city and the company to propose is tax abatement at a maximum of 60% over the 10-year period. We would start with a base of 35% for that initial investment, the $8.5 million in construction costs and $7.5 in real property costs. And then once the $80 million in additional taxable personal property is put online, then the base would raise 15% up to 50%. So if they don't add it, they don't get the additional abatement. Also along that lines, they can earn an additional 10% abatement for added full-time employment above the 40 minimum jobs, and for added community commitments in terms of Tarrant County resident employment and the use of DBE and Tarrant County contractors in construction contracting. So the total cumulative would be 60% that they could receive over that 10-year period. Again, at the initial time period, the max would be the 35% base plus possibly the 10% bonus. Until they add the $80 million, then it wouldn't go up any higher. They could add, if they add the $80 million, it goes up by 15% on that base value. When we look at the overall investment of $96 million and project the total 10-year tax abatement, depending on the phasing, when phase 2 comes online, it could be anywhere from the total 10-year tax abatement could be anywhere from $855,000 to $1.5 million for the county. The hospital district is not being asked to participate in this tax abatement. Mark Simon from NGC was supposed to be here, but he's been delayed. But I do have Robert Stearns from the city that wanted to come up and give a little discussion of Fort Worth's interest and in participation in this project.
Good morning.
Morning, Judge Whitley, Commissioners. Robert Stern, City of Fort Worth Housing and Economic Development. I'll just speak briefly about the project. I think Lisa has covered the specifics fairly well. And as she mentioned, Mark Simon, who is the company's COO, was not able to make it. He spends a lot of time traveling between California and China and could not make his schedule work in order to get here for the presentation. But he has been a key player in this. We've been negotiating with this company for most of the year. The city considered the tax abatement back in July of this year, and since that time there's been continued negotiations with the company. They're negotiating with Hillwood on the tract of land that they're going to acquire. And so again, this is another one of those projects that was considering Texas and another site in Louisiana, and it's a partnership between the city, hopefully the county, and the state from the Enterprise Fund that we are working together to bring this entire project here to Fort Worth. Again, this is their first subsidiary here in North America. They feel that Texas is a good location because of its centrality to the U.S. and the fact that they're able to touch on many of their clients, and they feel that they should have a strong presence here. In fact, the initial job projections when we presented to council, that was about 40 jobs to start out, and I talked with Sal Adamski at Tarrant Workforce yesterday, and he said that their initial projections are much higher than that. They're probably going to come out of the box in year one with about 70 employees, and expect that their ramp-up period will probably be a lot shorter than that 5-year process. So they're feeling very confident about this. And again, we just here to speak in support and urge your consideration to continue to bring these types of developments to Fort Worth. And I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Again, we're just briefing you on this. As you can see, we have a term sheet included in your package that goes into more detail of what I explained. If there's any questions or concerns, otherwise staff is going to move forward based on this term sheet and prepare a participation agreement, and we'll bring that back to you sometime after the first of the year.
Get after it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, members of the court, on item C, this is an update on the 2006 CIP. Mr. Phillips is here to address the court at this time.
I would like to update the Commissioners Court on the progress of several of the facilities management construction projects. First, the 1895 Courthouse Site Improvement Project. The bids have been received for the demolition of the old Civil Courts building, and they are being evaluated now. I would expect the Purchasing Department to be up here in January and present the results to Commissioners Court. Moving on to the Corrections Center Security System and Fire Alarm Replacement Project, we're done. The Sheriff's Department has accepted the work. The Texas Commission of Jail Standards has approved all the floors, and it was a good project. On that note, Ed Rittmayer, the Executive Project Manager for Gilbane Building Company, who built the new jail building, is retiring at the end of this month. Ed also was the Executive Project Manager for our successful Tarrant County Family Law Center 10 years ago. And also, Ed Rittmayer was the project manager of the program that oversaw the construction of the Tarrant County Justice Center, the Corrections Center, and the First Medical Examiner's Office. I would say Ed's been very good for Tarrant County. He's a good friend of mine, and we're going to miss him.
Absolutely.
Ed, thank you for your work. I feel like you almost made a career out of Tarrant County.
Well, you did.
I personally really appreciate the county taking me in like this. I actually felt a lot of times more like a staff of the county than an employee of Gilbane Building Company.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work.
Moving on to the Civil Courts building. The project's moving along just nicely. They are completing the concrete pour of the drive ramp that goes from the street level down to the basement. That'll be complete next week. They'll start the concrete pour of the first elevated floor next week, which will be the first floor of the building. And because of the good weather and some hard work from the trade contractors and very long hours during the week and on Saturdays, they are a few days ahead of schedule. Please be advised that in February, I plan to brief the Commissioners Court on the parking plan for the new Civil Courts building when it opens in a couple of years. There's at least three things I'll ask the court to consider at that time. First, I'll ask you to consider converting the fourth floor of the Calhoun garage from employee parking as it is today. I'll ask you to convert that to public parking. Also, I will ask the court to consider a change in the employee parking policy to reduce the number of employees it takes to create a carpool from currently 3 down to 2, so we can increase our carpool effort in the county to reduce the demand on our parking facilities. And third, I'm going to ask and talk about possible alterations for the bus pickup and drop-off for LaGrave Field over here for the jurors for their free parking. I think if we improve the experience for the jurors and improve that whole area there where they can get on and get off the bus easily, that'll help reduce the demand on our Calhoun garage and surrounding areas when we open up our new civil courts building. And that's all I have this morning.
So when's the civil courts building supposed to be completed?
We'll complete that, Judge, last quarter or first quarter, last quarter of 2014 or the first quarter of calendar year 2015. I would think we'll open probably 60 days after that, after we have a little transition and a move.
Okay. Any other questions or comments at this time? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Good luck with that parking thing.
Yeah, I really wish you hadn't mentioned the employees, because even though it's 2 years away, you've just
Thank you.
successfully given us a Christmas present.
Ruined their Christmas.
Yeah, just successfully gave us a little Christmas present there.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Thank you. We'll now recess from our open meeting and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under Sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
There he is.
Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have two items we're going to present to you. The first is an action item. It's under item 8M1, which is transportation services.
Good morning, or
Good morning.
afternoon.
It is afternoon. We're requesting the Commissioners Court to approve the real estate agreement for Tarrant County to acquire residential property located at 205 Bob White Trail in Burleson, Texas, containing 1.003 acres of land. Said acquisition to be made under the pre-disaster, I had trouble with that earlier, the Pre-Disaster Mitigation Program grant funded through the Federal Emergency Management Administration. Approve the warranty deed and authorize staff to perform the necessary duties to carry out the provisions of the agreement.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Members of the court, if we could now go to the administrator section, item A7. This concerns the sale and use of fireworks.
Your Honor, Commissioners, the regulation of the sale and use of restricted fireworks under Section 352.051 of the Local Government Code necessitates a KB drought index number of 575 to constitute drought conditions, and the number provided to us by the Texas Forest Service this morning is that Tarrant County is shy of that 575 requirement, and as such, a ban on the sale or use of the restricted fireworks. So that statute would not meet the statutory requirement.
And what are the other alternatives should that worsen? And does it require court action, action by myself, or what?
Under 352.051, that determination of a 575 has to be done by December 15th. Anything after that, the sale or use of all fireworks could be regulated through a declaration of disaster under Government Code 418.108, and that would be done by, Your Honor, the county judge.
And what are the things that they're typically looking for in order to make that kind of a declaration?
I would think you would need at least a 575 reading from the Texas Forest Service, in addition to probably some at least anecdotal evidence of conditions necessitating such a declaration of disaster and a need for the regulation of the sale and use of the fireworks.
Have other counties around us issued any bans with regards to fireworks, either the use or the sale of those fireworks at this point in time?
It's my understanding that there have not been any other counties that have done a declaration of disaster and ban on the sale of fireworks. At this point, there have been quite a few burn bans issued by other counties, but none that included a ban on the sale or use of restricted fireworks with a declaration of disaster under 418.108.
Well, but have there been other ones that have issued any kind of ban or sale under any other statutes at this point in time?
Well, I defer to Randy on what some of the other counties have done, lest I misspeak.
Your Honor, the only county I know that, as of today, that has dealt with the fireworks issue has been Johnson County. Yesterday, in their court action, they did a burn ban, which included the prohibitive use of fireworks. I don't believe it covered the sale, but the prohibitive use of fireworks. Everybody else is pretty much stuck with a burn ban with no action on fireworks.
Your Honor, I would like to encourage you, since we already have the burn ban in place, and we're coming up against the hard December 15th deadline, which is not going to meet the drought condition requirement. But should we meet the disaster declaration requirements between now and, say, December 30th, I would encourage you to use your executive powers to issue such a disaster declaration because the conditions out there fluctuate from day to day. And we just happen to miss it during this small window of time between the last time we met and talked about it and today. The danger is still out there that on New Year's Eve, for instance, which would be the high fireworks period, that we may have some extremely dry conditions that may cause a condition of danger for our public. So should you issue such a declaration, I would be firmly in your corner.
Now, we're meeting on the 27th for just a short claims meeting.
Claims and personnel, yes, sir.
Claims and personnel, but I would assume that we could also review that at that case. There's the 60-hour, if I were to declare that or if I were to issue the order that prohibits the use or sale, either or both, that can only be in effect for 60 hours.
Yes, Your Honor. It lasts, the declaration from you lasts for 60 hours and is only extended by a
request to the governor.
Request to the governor's office.
And then them comply or agreeing to that.
Correct.
That's 2.5 days.
And I have...
That wouldn't cover the first or the New Year's Eve.
It would if it did it on the 30th.
But it will get us closer at least to where I can hear, we can hear what changes may have occurred between now and then, and I can get any, a further sense from each one of you as to how it looks in your precincts. I got a letter here that I think may have been faxed to each one of y'all from some fireworks folks talking about how, they didn't want us to do anything. But I just, I think what we've got is we got a little bit of time. We can look at this on the 27th. I would suggest, Randy, that you be prepared to, you or someone be prepared to talk with us about the current status at that point in time. And then we'll be, willing to act or ready to act. Gary?
Rick, go ahead. I'm kind of maybe talking to you and Chica. Okay, this morning you told me the number was 574. That was yesterday's number?
Yes.
Did you get it today's number?
Yes, sir. It stayed the same.
Same.
Yes, sir.
One thing I've asked Randy to do is to email the court members that number every day so that you all can track that number.
Okay. Very good. Well, let's go ahead and put it on the agenda for the 27th, just so that if we need to, if there was any action, because
really, Your Honor.
Because the 15th was the deadline.
Right.
So there's really no action that the court can take on the 27th. It would be just an individual order from myself.
And I would agree with what Commissioner Brooks has said.
So would I.
So would I.
Okay, thank you all. That helps me. And then again, Randy, if something were to happen that changed this between now and the 27th, you and I just need to continue to stay in. I can't. How often can I issue the 60-hour order?
There's no limitation on it. It's just that it can't be longer than 60 hours. Obviously, you can't use that 60-hour limitation by continually renewing it to get around the limitation. But I would think more than one could be issued within a December fireworks season.
So you and I just need to stay in touch, and then keep me posted on any grass fires or anything like that might come up during that period of time.
Very good. Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Yeah, with this discussion, maybe we'll get a good rain now.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
to everyone.
We're adjourned.
Highest chance of rain.
Where's the
next
public?
24